While most people play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe online for fun, today I'm racing for data, and now I know way too much. Over the course of 100 races, I tracked every vote, every win, every change in VR, and much more. Which tracks showed up the most? Which courses do people just love voting for? Which characters dominate online? In order to answer these questions, I created a spreadsheet and updated it as I went through my next 100 races. I kept track of which courses were given as options, how many people voted for them, which tracks were actually picked, how many times random was picked and which track it ended up being, my placements, the character and country who won, and of course, my VR. This whole video actually started as a way for me to grind VR so that I can make it to 15,000 before you guys make it to 15,000 subscribers. This is what I call the race to 15,000. My goal is essentially to keep my VR higher than the subscriber count. So if you guys want to see more informational content like this and win the race to 15,000, then subscribe. But anyways, as I went through the races, I had goals and objectives in mind that I thought would be fun to hit. First of all, I wanted to get my VR to at least 11,200 from 10,155. This means that I would need to gain 1,065 VR, or an average of around 11 per race. This is very doable, so I just wanted to keep that number in mind as I went through these races. My other overarching goal was to get more first places than any other placement. If I can accomplish both of these goals, I'd consider this video a success. These were just a few goals that I had in mind, but there were a few others that popped up throughout the video, and I'll talk about those as we journey together through what the next 100 races look like. And with that being said, let's get started with race 1. The first race gave us the options of Mute City, which got 4 votes, Cheap Cheap Beach, which got 2 votes, and Yoshi Valley, which got 3 votes. There are also 2 players who chose random. And I'll just say this right now, I chose random for all 100 courses. But eventually we ended up racing on Yoshi Valley, and here's how the first race went. I wasn't doing too well, so I ended up getting a bullet bill, which carried me into first because of an awesome shock dodge. And I held that lead going into the final lap when... So rude. So from here I tried to play catch up in the final lap and ended up getting 5th place, which gave me 12 VR. It wasn't exactly smooth, but if I can continue this into race 2, then I will beat this VR goal. Race 2 gave us the options of Dragon Driftway, which got 3 votes, Boo Lake, which got 4 votes, and Shroom Ridge, which got 2 votes, with 2 people and me voting for random. We ended up racing on Dragon Driftway, and it went like this. Yeah, I ended the race in 9th place, losing 3 VR. This isn't what I like to see, so hopefully the next few races get better and put us back on track. Those next few races actually went pretty smoothly, with me doing decently well, mostly gaining VR. And then I got to race 7, which gave me a new goal. We were given the option of 2 different rainbow roads, which gave me the idea to race on all 5. So, with both Mario Kart 8 and 3DS Rainbow Roads both as options here, which one would I race on first? Well, apparently neither, because we got random. But the goal was still there, and we had 93 more chances to race on all 5 Rainbow Roads. Race 8 took us to Paris, where I ended up getting 2nd place, and on race 9, something big happened. Unless I get lightninged, or booed, or triple reds, or somebody takes this shortcut and beats me, I could actually win this. Not even a trick there. I got my first win. So now I'm nearly 10% done with the races and just getting my first win. That doesn't really bode well for my goal of getting more first places than any other positions. But with that first win in the books, I continued racing until I ended up on a course that I knew I would do well on, Toad Circuit. This is a course that I typically do pretty well on, and as long as there's no funny business, I should be able to get an easy VR boost. I mean, this course is short, I know it like the back of my... Well then, if the game is going to take away my hard-earned VR by force, I'll just become unstoppable. Yeah, I didn't do as well as I was hoping, but since we're now at the second quarter of races, I figured this would be a good time to see what the stats are looking like. So far, these are the tracks that we've raced on. Yoshi has been dominating the first place spot, and America holds the crown for the most races won. As for me, my VR only went up 178, which is an average of 7.12 VR per match. That's not even close to the 11 VR that I needed per match in order to reach my goal, so I'm gonna really have to step it up in the next few races. And for my positions, the one that I've ended up the most in is second place, with first being one behind. In this first quarter, I didn't do nearly as well as I wanted to, so now it was time for me to lock in and buckle up for the second quarter, since I've got a lot of ground to make up. The second quarter is where one of these stats gets a drastic change, so while I show you the results of all 25 races, let me know if you notice a pattern. As you can see, the Japanese decided to show up and absolutely dominate almost every single race. Spoiler, I only got one single win in this quarter, and beside that, Japan won 20 out of 25 of these races. However, this quarter did involve some notable moments, so let's go back and see what else happened besides the Japanese takeover. The first notable part was the fact that I got a new goal. On race 31, I got the option for Romavanti, and that made me realize that since my name is roaming around, I should win on the course. So a new goal was set, win on Romavanti. And as the people selected their choice for which course to race on, I was crossing my fingers hoping for a majority of them to pick Romavanti. And then I saw this. Well, that's disappointing. We ended up racing on London Loop through a random pick, and I got second place, losing to a Japanese player. I don't really know what the odds are of a random choice being one of the options that we were given. I guess it's 1 in 96, but that would be amazing if it happened. It might take who knows how long for Romavanti to come up as another option, so it would be great if... Well then, I guess the opportunity came up sooner than I thought it would. Hopefully this time people actually pick it. Well, great. Let's just move on to race 33, which had one of the most interesting things happen. The options were Amsterdam Drift, which got 1 vote, DK Summit, which got 2 votes, and Yoshi's Island, which got 2 votes. There was also 5 people who voted for random. And then this happened. Somehow, DK Summit was the random course while being one of the options that we could vote for. The thing that I just said was super unlikely, yeah, it happened 2 races later. It was pretty cool to see, and if it wasn't recorded, I'm sure nobody would believe it. I ended up only getting 7th place in this course, so let's just continue on. After that, there were a few regular old, not really notable races, except that I got 4 randoms in a row, which is pretty cool. And then I finally got a course that I know very well on race 41, and that course was Choco Mountain. As I expected, I won the race, which is pretty notable because it was the first and only time that I won in this quarter playing with so many good Japanese players. So now that I know that I can win on Choco Mountain, I was hoping for another chance to race on it to rack up my wins. And that chance would come sooner than I expected on race 46, only 4 races after. And as usual, I was doing well until... Oh my goodness! However, I wasn't finished just yet. As we watch what happens in this race, let this be a lesson. Don't give up just because something bad comes your way. With confidence and determination, you can make anything your reality. Alright, fine. You saw correctly. Yes, that was the recording from the previous race. Here's what actually happened. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Let's just move on to another race. Going back a few races to race 42, I got Wii Rainbow Road, so now I'm 2 Rainbow Roads down with 3 to go, and a little over half of the races left. The next race was Rosalina's Ice World, which is funny because only one guy voted for it, leaving the rest of us disappointed. As a matter of fact, this exact thing actually happened 8 times throughout the video, where a course only got 1 vote, and then the game chose that one. I know it feels like it happens like all the time on every race, but it was only 8%, which is still kind of a lot. The next course though was Ninja Hideaway, which I like and I think I'm pretty good at. However, the game had a different idea in mind. Bruh. This is funny because it was the most VR that I lost throughout all 100 races, which is wild because I only lost it because the game crashed. But moving on to race 45, this one gave me a new goal. We raced on Mario Kart Stadium, and that's when I realized that this was the first time that I raced on this track, being the first one in the game. So I had the new goal of racing through the Mushroom Cup on this video. Luckily for me, I'm already halfway done since I raced on Thwomp Ruins back on race 13. The final 5 races of this quarter weren't really anything special, and the only things that I wanted to point out was that on race 48, I raced on Mario Kart 8's Rainbow Road. But with that being said, let's take a look at the stats for the second quarter. Here's an updated image of the maps that I've raced on so far now that we're at the halfway point. With 96 courses in the game, we theoretically should be able to race on every single course once, and then a few of them get repeated. And so far, that seems to be kind of true-ish, as around half of the courses have been raced on. But looking at which character has won the most races, Yoshi is winning by so much that I don't even think it's possible for another character to win at this point. And as I mentioned earlier, Japan has taken over as the dominant country. As for my VR, it went up to 10,484 from 10,333, meaning that I gained 151 VR over these 25 races. That is an average of 6.04 VR per race. This was a pretty terrible quarter for me, and I am now 716 VR away from the goal of 11,200. At this pace, there's not really any chance that I'm going to reach it, but there's only one way to find out. And now, because of this quarter, my goal of getting more first places seems completely out of reach, with only 5 first place wins and 9 second place wins. So far, I've been doing pretty bad and getting unlucky with a lot of these races, but now that we're entering the second half of this journey, it's time for me to race like my VR depends on it. Because it does. Entering race 51, I only had one thing in mind: win. And while I didn't win every race, this quarter was definitely the best one that I've had so far. I had a long streak of gaining a ton of VR, as well as winning multiple times in a row. Between races 51 all the way to 67, I didn't lose any VR at all, and I managed to get first place 4 times. I was even able to race on Nintendo 64's Rainbow Road, which means I only have 1 left. But this run was huge for my VR, and tragically, it ended on a race that I'm sure we are all too familiar with. After 68 races, Baby Park finally showed up. This track and Excitebike were tracks that I felt determined to win on. However, as I just said, I didn't gain any VR on this race, and here's why. I want some stars? Give me some stars. Hello? Mushrooms? Oh, give me a star. Why do I keep getting triple mushrooms? Give me some stars! I don't want triple mushrooms! Oh my goodness. Give me something better than triple mushrooms. Okay. I just got triple mushrooms that whole time. That was dumb. Somehow, I managed to only get triple mushrooms throughout this entire race from every single item box. And in a map that's as chaotic as Baby Park, triple mushrooms just aren't going to do the job. Maybe it was lag, maybe it was bad luck, but either way, the triple mushroom fiasco ended my VR run and gave me a loss on Baby Park. But now, I really wanted to win on one of the oval courses, either Baby Park or Excitebike. But after Baby Park, I lost again pretty badly on Mario Circuit 3, and then something exciting happened. There it was, Rainbow Road 3DS, the final Rainbow Road that I need to race on all 5. It only got 1 vote, but in the end, that's all I need. And I didn't get it. At this rate, I honestly don't even know if it's going to reappear considering how long it took to even show up as an option, but at least we're racing on Paris Promenade, which isn't too bad since it's a course that I'm decently good at. Alright, race 70 wasn't such a good time, so it was extra nice when I won on Toad's Turnpike after out-drifting the guy who was in front of me. After that, I got second place on Ribbon Road, and then I had another opportunity right in front of me. And here again was Rome Avanti, but hopefully this time I'll be able to race on it and win. This wasn't really great for my goal of winning on Rome Avanti, especially considering how hard it is to even race on the course, but I have no choice except to race hard on Mario Circuit. And boom, another first place on Mario Circuit. I've got a pretty decent momentum going on with my VR, and I wanted to carry way further past race 74. Well, Mario Kart gives and it takes away. But now we're heading into the final race of the quarter, which was on Mario Circuit 3. I was doing just as great as I could have done in this race, and I was going into the final lap with a major lead. And then... No! 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 That's okay, second. At least I only got second. Oh, I should have won though. Well, that could have been a lot worse. At least second place still gives me a decent amount of VR, and with that, the third quarter was now completed. So, looking at everything that happened between races 51 through 75, here are the current standings. While Japan managed to get a lot of wins, it wasn't as much as the second quarter, but still enough to hold the lead, for now. And my VR is now at 10,825, which means that I gained 341 VR, or an average of 13.64. Finally, I'm above the average that I need in order to reach 11,200. But that also means that I still need to gain 375 VR in the next and final quarter, which means I would need to race better than ever before in order to get there. And as for my placements, my first places have been bumped up to 11 in total, but still coming short of second, being at 14. But now it's finally time to enter the end of this challenge. So let's head to the final quarter. We started out strong on race 76 with a chance at Rome Avanti. And it got the most votes this time, so it was now or never. Come on game, let me race on Rome Avanti. Finally, it's go time. I now have a chance to check this off the list. So I raced, and this was how it ended. And with a very strong start to our final quarter, this could be exactly what I need to check off some of the other goals in this video. Continuing on, I managed to get 2 city tracks in a row and Dragon Driftway with mixed results. And then I managed to get another win on TikTok Clock. However, it's race 81 that I wanted to take a look at, because we raced on random, which just so happened to be Excite Bike. I've been waiting for this course ever since the baby park mess that happened back on race 68, so going into Excite Bike, all I wanted to do was win. This was a very strong spot to be in order for me to gain a few positions at the end, and since I had triple greens, nothing could hit me. Are you serious? However, despite the game doing its best to make me lose, I still ended up getting second place, which isn't exactly what I was hoping for, but it wasn't a loss in VR, so I was happy. The next course ended up being Big Blue, and I did horribly. But moving on to race 83, I had another opportunity to check off one of my goals. Here in front of me was Rainbow Road 3DS. I just needed enough people to vote for it and the challenge would be done. However, just like before, it only got 1 vote, but that's okay, it only takes 1. And with that, another goal is checked off the list. I then had 2 Wario tracks back to back, which I think is pretty funny, and I managed to win on Mount Wario. I then continued on with Snowland, where I got 8th place, and Yoshi's Island getting 3rd. Race 88 was Rainbow Road SNES again, which is now the 3rd time I've raced on it in this video. But this race was a little different because I ended up winning and gaining 33 VR, which was the most that I've gotten in a single race. The next few races were pretty unnotable, where I got 4th place on Sherbetland and 3rd on Electrodrome. And then race 91 came and gave me some disappointing news. Here was Water Park, a course, from the Mushroom Cup, and once again, I didn't get it. And this was sad because I'll just tell you now, I never ended up racing on any of the other Mushroom Cup tracks, or even seeing them again as an option. So with this race, the goal will officially never get completed. But I managed to get 3rd place on Vancouver Velocity, 2nd on Squeaky Clean Sprint, and then getting 1st on Berlin Byways. And now, with only 6 races left, I still had this goal ahead of me, to win on Baby Park or Excite Bike. But unfortunately, with only 6 races left, my chances of getting either of those were slim. Oh, maybe not as slim as I thought. Here is my final chance at victory, one more race on Excite Bike. So I raced as well as I could, and I finally won. And now with that, I only have these final 2 goals. Get more first places than any other positions, and make it to 11,200 VR. So with that in mind, I headed into the final races with victory on the mind. Okay, so that wasn't as smooth as I hoped it would be, but I still have 3 races left, the first of which was on Calamari Desert. The race was going well, and then even better when a blue shell hit the person in first. All the stars aligned as I went into the final lap with a red shell and a super horn. And as I approached the finish line, I'm getting a little nervous. Right at the end. Okay. Okay, that's exactly the thing I didn't want to happen. But if I can get a little mini turbo here, we should be fine. Perfect. There's a chance. I got really scared, but I ended up winning, which brought me to 11,168 VR. This means I am now only 32 away from reaching my goal. Race 99 ended up being on DK Jungle. Not too bad, I know I can handle myself well enough on this course, and it could be just what I need to reach my goal. After that scary hit, I managed to crawl back up into 2nd place and held it there until Blue Shell got the guy ahead of me, giving me 1st place heading into the final lap. However, like usual, Mario Kart sometimes has a different idea. Maybe I should have let go of the drift earlier. Maybe I should have jumped. But either way, the grass slowed me down enough for 2nd place to catch up. And when I tried to get close to him, this could have been a lot worse, and I ended up finishing the race in 2nd instead of 1st. I gained 20 VR, which means that now I only need 12 more on this final race in order to reach 11,200. Hopefully this final race is on one of the older tracks, or at least a course I'm a little bit familiar with. Well, this is going to be tricky. And this is it, the final race. After 99 races, it all comes down to this last one. Come on, Yoshi, win this. I'm not all that familiar with this track, but that's okay because I only need 12 VR, so I just need to be good enough. But what's the point of being good enough when you can be great? Going into the 3rd lap, I was in 2nd place with a red shell, and a blue shell was on the way for the guy in 1st. This is a great position to be in. I would even call it a winning spot. Unless, of course, the game would rather watch you lose. Well, that sucked. I ended up in 4th place for our final race. However, before we see how much VR I gained or lost from this placement, let's take one final look back at these stats. First of all, Yoshi clearly won this contest with 49 wins total, being almost half. Here's a little image of which characters got wins and how many. And these numbers do add up to only 98, but that's because there were 2 matches that ended with errors that didn't actually give a winner. And as for the country, America ended with 32 wins. So did Japan get any higher? Yes, they did, with 43 wins, which means that Japan is the winner for this category. Here are the other countries that got wins and how many, but just remember again that there were 2 errors. And as for my placements, I ended up getting 0 12th places, which is something of its own, 6 11ths, 6 10ths, 7 9ths, 6 8ths, 5 7ths, 3 6ths, 11 5ths, 10 4ths, 8 3rds, 18 seconds, and finally, 18 firsts, which means that I unfortunately did not reach my goal of getting more first places than any other. And while I might not have been successful with this goal, there's still one more goal that we haven't looked at yet. How much VR did I get in that final race? I got exactly 12 VR, which means that my goal was a success. So now that the final numbers are all tallied up, it's time that I do one more race to wrap everything up and tell you guys some important stats that I've been saving until now. Firstly, this video was a lot of work, but I'm glad that I was able to make it. Thank you guys for being a part of the journey with me, and while we watch this final race unfold, let's talk about some interesting stats and facts. I thought it was super interesting that out of all 98 courses, the most popular ones that I raced on were Dragon Driftway, Rainbow Road SNES, Coconut Mall, and London Loop, all with 3 races each. The course that appeared the most as an option was Sunset Wilds, and it showed up 7 times. And out of 100 races with 96 courses, 27 of them were never even played on. More than a quarter of the races in the game didn't get any races, which I think is pretty crazy. And even crazier than that, I think, was that 4 courses never even appeared as options. Sweet Sweet Canyon, Yoshi Circuit, Baby Park, which is pretty crazy, and Music Park. These are the 4 courses that Nintendo did not even want to give us a chance to vote for. However, 2 of these courses I did race on, but they were only because of random picks, which means that Sweet Sweet Canyon and Music Park never appeared in this video at all. I guess Nintendo just hates these tracks and never wants us to race on them. No, I'm kidding, but for whatever reason, they just didn't show up at all through all 100 races. And in terms of popularity, Ribbon Road and Mario Kart Circuit DS both got the most votes with 21 each. And the least popular track was Super Bell Subway, which showed up twice and got a whopping total of 0 votes. And for one last look at my VR, I gained a total of 1,363 VR in this video, and I lost 298, for a total of 10,065, exactly what I needed to reach my goal. And as this final 101st race that you're watching nears the end, there's one thing that I want you to remember. Even if you don't reach your goal within your original time frame, you can achieve anything if you push beyond what you thought was possible. Thank you for watching.